is hilarious, man. I'm shocked because LL was a stranger to you. At least I knew him, so I trusted him when he had me sign my life away and sent me that little 30-second video. Like, here's some information about the company. I was like, what is this? But at least I knew him and trusted him. You just a young man, like, whatever.
Dude, the title was recruiting analyst. So I thought I was going to be like looking at like time to fill data and like all this like analyzing things. I really went in on the analyst part. Yeah. None of it. I don't think I've analyzed data in like my first 2 years.
Right. You didn't realize you're going to be like part-time janitor, marketing, help set the food up.
Dude, I remember the other time, speaking of part-time janitor, only time I was actually mad at Leland was we were in like a conference, and we start to see water seep underneath the conference room floor. And I go out, and it's in Riv 2, Leland, and the unisex bathroom started to flood. And Jenna was not there. Jenna, who normally would do it. And Leland went like, well, I mean, you're the most junior of us. And then we plugged the toilet. Oh, and this is like month 4 of being there. So I hadn't earned any stripes yet. I had done like nothing, if anything, I had done more to get myself closer to being fired than I had like promoted at that point.
Right.
I spent 25 minutes plunging and mopping a bathroom that someone else had clogged.
I bet you told that ex-girlfriend I am qualified for this job. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are. If you can hear the sound of my voice, we want to thank you for joining. Appreciate the Journey to Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is JoeDREW, but I don't come along. I come with my partner in time, my brother from another, LL. Say what's up to the people, LL.
How's it going, everyone? Happy to be here.
Yeah, you are. You should be, because we got an exciting show for today. Before we jump into it and introduce our esteemed guest, and by esteemed, I mean not that much esteemed, but we'll see. I'm going to make sure that we set the stage. Appreciate the journey. This platform that we're creating is a podcast as well as an opportunity for career coaching. You can hire us to support you in a variety of ways, and I'll let LL talk about it. But the idea is that we want to show appreciation for the journey we've been on, the lessons we've learned, the experiences we gained, but most importantly, the people we've connected with. So LL, before we get started, please make sure that you let the people know how can they contact us. Where can they go? Social media, website. Give a little bit about our meat and potatoes, which is our career coaching practice.
Absolutely, brother. So you can find us on almost all of the socials at ATJ, the podcast, and that's on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or you can find us LinkedIn, or you can find us on our website, atjcareercoaching.com. Like Joe said, we're here to spread some knowledge. We're here to take some of our experiences and help you become successful in your career journey. So whatever needs that you may have, reach out to us. We'll see what we can do.
Dope.
Yeah.
So we have another one of our great guests. We've had a few already up to this point, and I can't be more excited about this particular guest. So LL, I'm gonna pass it over to you. Let's give a little introduction to this very deserving person.
Man, I am super pumped for today's guest.
Yeah.
And just a bit of a warning for everyone. You all already know that words are tough for me sometimes. This whole speaking thing is not my forte. It's just going to get worse today because I am so excited about today's guest. But this is somebody that Joe and I have both worked with very closely. He's currently a manager of talent acquisition over at Rivian.
Okay.
And, most importantly, though, he's just a fantastic human being. So everybody welcome Mr. Josh Rothermel.
Hey,
Josh, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Happy to be here.
I hear the applause from all over the world, man. Maybe LL, we got to work on that. We're going to work on getting some applause on our dashboard so that, when we bring esteemed people like Josh, we can give them a round of applause.
As
Love it.
anyone who has met me, Joe, will tell you, I don't need anything to get my big head any bigger. So we can keep the applause out of this one.
Yeah, I attest that for sure. I absolutely attest that. So yeah, LL, let's jump in.
Yeah. So real quick, Josh. I already mentioned that you're a manager of talent acquisition, a recruiting manager, basically. But tell us about your path. How did you get here? Where did you start? Tell us about your education background and how you got from, young man Josh to manager of recruiting today.
Yeah. So I went to Michigan State University. That's kind of where the journey starts. And throughout my life, I've always just been really interested in different types of people. I grew up in picture the most suburbia kind of Midwest town that you could go in. So when I got into college, I wanted to do international relations. Had some internships at the United Nations, had some internships with some IGOs, but found out the public kind of space wasn't for me. A little bit too slow. I like some fast pace. Got into logistics from there after I graduated, and I did not care for that and was not good at it. And it kind of then took me to meeting you, Al. I applied to an ad for this company that was changing the world, they said. And they had a video attached, no job description, just a video of some dude walking through bright white lights. And I said, hey, let's go do this. Let's give it a try. About a week later, I get a call from this very formal sounding man asking me, hey, we'd love to interview for a call. And that's actually how I had my first meeting with you, LL. I remember taking it in the parking lot of the company I currently worked at because we weren't really allowed to have breaks. So I said I had to go to the dentist or something and just sat in the parking lot for my entire first interview with you. And it was literally, I remember the first question you asked me. And you're like, hey, how do you handle, telling people bad news? Can you deliver bad news to individuals?
That was the first question I asked you?
Man. Other than hey, how are you? Tell me a little bit about your thing. You were to the point. You're like, it sounds way too tough. I got to see if he's got some gut in him. And I just told the company that they were going to lose $10,000 a minute. And I was like, yeah, I got the bad news thing down. No problem.
Josh, let me stop you there because I think you're getting into a lot of the stuff that we want to talk about. Yeah. But if I'm hearing correctly, interviewing with LL was similar to going to the dentist. Basically, same experience.
Yeah. I open wide and just let them do what they needed.
No, that's awesome. So wait, Josh. So thank you for giving us kind of a rundown from your college days and some of the interests. I've known you 5 years. Didn't know about the international kind of experience and things that you wanted to do. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, since you mentioned your alma mater, even now our heart still goes out to Michigan State and that community and the tragedy that happened. So we want to always here appreciate the journey, just show love for those who are impacted directly or indirectly. So I'd be remiss if we didn't share that. Before we jump into this interview, here at ATJ, we like to do a little more creative introduction, if you will. So this is a diversity exercise that I've used many times and something we brought to this pod. And so it's called My Fullest Name. So here are the prompts, Josh. Take one, take two, whichever one you want to do. Do you know the ethnic origin of your name? Do you know any funny stories or anecdotes around your name, whether your first name, your surname? Do you have any nicknames? If so, how'd you get it? Is there any meaning behind your name? Any stories wrapped around your name, we would love to hear. Floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, I'll go with the last name and kind of how I got that, because it's a pretty interesting story, I think. So my last name is Rothermel, which means red sleeve in German, but I am not German in the slightest. I am pretty much Polish, half Italian, and my last name would have been Krajzagorski, which is about as Polish as you can get. It's got 13 letters, only one vowel. But basically what happened is back in the 1920s, Great Depression is starting to go off. It's late 1920s, early 1930s. And there's my great-grandfather, a man named Joseph Krajzagorski. There's also a man named Joseph Rothermel, who I am not related to in any way, shape, or form. Joseph Rothermel worked at the Ford plant in Michigan. Joseph Krzyzegorski was unemployed, had a family he needed to take care of. Back in those days, there wasn't really a whole lot of worker protection if you got sick, if you got injured. Joseph Rothermel ends up getting sick and needs someone to basically fill in for his job that can use the punch card and answer to the same name. Joseph Rothermel goes to my great-grandfather and says, hey, can you come work for me while I'm out sick, basically? And then when I recover, we'll see if we can get you a job at Ford as well. Joseph Rothermel doesn't get better, ends up actually passing away. My great-grandfather, in typical kind of opportunistic fashion, says, I got a job, I got mouths to feed, and then legally changes his name to Joseph Rothermel. So if you look at like my great uncles and stuff like that, they all start off as Krzyzegorskis, and then my grandfather is actually the only true like Rothermel, if I remember correctly. All the rest are technically Krzyzegorskis, and then since then we just kind of stole some dude's name who was from out. And I get asked all the time, like, "Oh, do you know like Tiffany Rothermel?" And I'm like, "I guarantee you, I'm not related to them. Like zero chance."
Wow,
That is such an amazing story.
So understand, this is we say this is reality podcasting. Yeah. There was no prep here. We had no idea that this is the story Josh was bringing. My head's about to explode by how amazing that is. I hope if there's any Rothermels that listen to this podcast, don't blame us. Talk to Josh.
It's like 100 years ago, so hopefully they've kind of forgiven us, but we'll see.
Statute of limitation.
Yeah. Identity theft is no joke, guys.
Absolutely. Now, thank you for that, Josh, and we appreciate you, kind of sharing some historical things around your name. I think that's a fascinating story.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, such a cool story. So yeah, Josh, why don't we go back to your journey? Talk us through how you got to where you are, and then also hit us with some of the most pivotal moments that you can think of as well.
Yeah. So like I said, I applied to the role at Rivian, and there really wasn't any job description. We were such an early stage company at that point and had so much secrecy. I didn't know a lot. And I was also like 22 at the time, so I don't think I would have even needed to know a lot. I knew I just wanted to work with like smart people, and I didn't really care what it was at that point. And I knew after LL, that first call with you, it was the first time my interview, I actually felt like I was like tested in some way. Other interviews I'd been on just kind of felt like checking the boxes. Mm-hmm. Then from there, like I have talked to you about before, like went through the interview process with you. It was awesome. Kind of found out what we were doing as a company through the process, kept meeting people who were smarter than the last person. I left every interview like, I'm the dumbest one in this room, which is kind of how I want to feel. And actually then eventually took the job offer after a bit of negative reinforcement from the girl I was dating at the time, who didn't think I would have been capable of doing the job. That's when I got my first kind of dip into recruiting, and honestly fell in love with it. One of the things, like I mentioned earlier, is I love to hear stories, and that's what's cool about recruiting to me. Not only are you helping people, but you're hearing their stories on a daily basis. Talking to people who can make, designing a chassis subframe sound like the coolest thing in the world, and get visibly excited about it. And just knowing like, yes, this is the person, this is who needs to work here. There's kind of a high to that. So I gained my tutelage underneath you, LL. And I actually think the first kind of like the biggest pivotal moment, and I think you'll probably remember this, but involved you and Ryan Gee, was like 2 months in, I think was when I almost got fired and to give context, I used to send a weekly report of everyone who had just been hired at the company. And that was like one of my big duties. And we had done it one time, and there was this name on the list, and I got told that like, hey, you shouldn't put this name on the list. Like our CEO at the time wouldn't want anyone to see it. because it's kind of confidential. And I said, okay, deleted that list or deleted that name, but left the entire email string behind. Did not delete the email string, and then proceeded to send that to the entire company. So not only did I send the name, which may have been overlooked, I sent the email that said, we don't want people to see this because, don't send this. That was, I first felt what true anxiety felt like. Nothing like that. But I remember freaking out, and Leland and a guy named Ryan sat me down in a room, and both were just kind of like, hey man, like this was bad. And Ryan said something to me that, like, to this day, it still rings in my head. He's like, hey, you're not in trouble. Mistakes happen. But I do want you to know I'm not going to be able to sleep on my back because of all the knives I've taken on your behalf today. Yeah. And two things really happened from that kind of moment. One, I truly learned what it like, okay, mistakes do happen and they're okay. Even the ones that you're like, I'm fired, I'm gone, I'm fired. And second, detail. Check your emails before you send them. Kind of go through that. So I think that's like the big pivotal moment for me in terms of like getting into a career. I think mistakes are big. And I think like you don't know who you are until all the cards are on the table and your back's against the wall. And as Leland can probably tell you, my performance went from probably adequate to
superb, right?
Yeah, much better because I had that little bit of a fire underneath me.
No, that's wow.
So that was the big one.
I can imagine that
from huge mistake to moving out to California, getting promoted a couple times, to to today where you're this everything I hear, you're still doing an awesome job. So that's a really great lesson learned.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that, and I just want to, as a kind of a follow up to the journey, because you gave a little bit about it early on, and obviously Leland kind of fill in the blanks around. You had a chance to relocate, and you've grown. You're a leader of people, and all of that stuff. You're, if I'm not mistaken, you're the longest tenured, or the second or third longest tenured person in the whole HR organization at a company, which is like super, super dope. I met you a couple months after you started, right? Maybe a year.
Like a year, I want to say. Right?
Maybe a year. Okay. Still early on, very young man, right? And one of the things that jump out, because you were part of my interview. So I'm like, who is this young, asking me these questions? I'm looking like, oh, really, young fella? You gonna ask me those questions? Great interview questions. I was just shocked by the source, right? I'm like, this dude can't be but 21. Have you always had that level of confidence in your ability when you show up, and your presence is big, and you have confidence, and you're not afraid to introduce yourself and speak and talk no matter who's around? Like, have you always had that, or is that something you developed throughout the journey?
I think, I don't know if I developed it in my professional career, but I developed it, and I think it really comes from my mom. So I'm an only child. So growing up, I talked to a lot of adults. And if I wanted attention, I had to make sure what I was saying was intelligent. And I had to make sure that I was loud enough to be heard over adults. To be honest, Joe, the interview with you scared out of my mind. Because I was told, hey, this is a guy that Leland looked up to. Leland was, my mentor at the time. So this is my mentor, someone that he speaks highly of. And I got to pretend like I know what I'm talking about when I'm interviewing him.
Wow.
It's gotten better. I think the one thing through the journey, the one thing I've learned has been that calmness or what gravitas like actually means. I've always been a big presence, but I've been a big presence in terms of being loud. And I think there's sometimes, and what I've learned probably in the last 2-3 years of meeting with VPs and talking with all these other like high level candidates, sometimes not saying things is way more important than saying things. Like the times when you listen, the times when you don't always have to speak.
Yeah.
I've gone entire meetings where I have not initiated conversation, which when you met me, Joe, no way. No way would I be able to go a whole meeting without, here's a random opinion in my head.
I agree, and I remember all of that. But no, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. That you kind of have the self-awareness about yourself, and as a person who lived off personality for a good chunk of my career early on, learning how to dial it up and dial it down was one of the most amazing experiences and skills that I was able to apply. So to hear you and know that you got it a lot earlier than I did, if I had a hat on, I would take it off.
It's because of the guy. It's because of LL. He the one
Hey
time.
man, don't give him too many props. Look, like you've already sung his praises like 4 times. Like we don't need him to be floating over there.
Just keep going. Just keep going. I love this. But to okay, like on a serious note here, I still say to this day that Josh was the best entry level interview I've ever had in my entire life. I mean, this man came into the interview
Wow.
for a job that he had never done before, 100% prepared. He knew everything about a system that he had never used before. Like he somehow got access to like LinkedIn Recruiter through a ex-girlfriend or a friend or whatever, and practice. He practiced because we had what's called like a realistic job preview, our RJP type of thing in our interview process, where hey, this is the job that you're going to be doing. Show us how you would do it.
Yeah.
And I before Josh came in, I mean, the idea wasn't to make sure that he knew everything. The idea was to see, how he worked through certain problems. But he came in 100% prepared. He was on top of it, man. So this guy was, again, to this day, best entry level job interview I've ever conducted.
Appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
To be fair, he interviewed me past entry level, or that would be.
It's all right, Joe. We talked before this. We're just throwing compliments back and forth.
I see. I see. I want you to submit your text thread because I'm sure that you want to prep for this. But no. Let's you've already sprinkled some of this in. One of the things we like to talk about, in the whole idea of a journey, right? There's big rocks, there's small pebbles, but these are just lessons, right? So you talk about the attention to detail. You talk about mistakes happen, but it's how you respond to that. You talk about the presence, or the word you said gravitas. Was that the word that you? I mean, dog, you ain't got to come on. This is appreciate the journey. We here for the people. We're a show of the people. You ain't got to use your school words on us. But no. You talk about the gravitas, right? The presence. Yeah. What other big rocks, small pebbles do you think that you've gained throughout this? I mean, relatively short but super amazing career that you've already built for yourself in, I don't know, what, 6 years that you've been working?
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
I think, like, if I had to look over the 2 biggest things that have helped me, it's been like cooperating with others, and because of that cooperation, gaining information on things outside of my scope. I'm not a better recruiter than a lot of recruiters out there. Like, I think I'm a good recruiter, but I wouldn't say I'm the best. What I was and what I still am to this day is I'm a more informed recruiter. I think one of the greatest things that you can do is to get to know those who, like, not necessarily do your job, but touch your job. So in my case, our business partners, our finance team, our compensation partners, your clients, and see what they're doing.
Right.
Because most of the time I come out looking really, really well prepared because I know about something before most people know about it. Is it, a program that we're going to be kicking off? So I know to get my search strings ready. There's going to be a change to a compensation. So I know to either get an offer through now or to hold off on it. If I didn't interact and I didn't build that rapport with my cross-functional partners, I don't have any of that. And I don't have that competitive advantage in the workplace. That's my biggest strength, is like, build those communities within your job, because those will get you further than, and I'll use the kind of antithesis to like who I am, the brilliant asshole, the person who just does everything, but no one likes working with them.
Yeah.
I see that so often, where people will skyrocket early in their careers because they're really, really good at what they do, but as soon as they have to play nice with others, no one wants to work with them. And those people eventually they might get to middle management, but they'll never get to the top. They'll never be that C-suite, because the higher up you get, the more and more it is about working with others, getting people to do what you want them to do. And no one wants to do that with an asshole. Like, there's no other way to say it.
L, I know you probably have a follow-up.
Insightful.
I know you have a follow-up to this. I can't believe how wise this young man is, especially because I know him so well. So I'm like, where's this wisdom coming from? But something a couple weeks ago, we posted a show, Josh, around, your network and fostering relationships. And so what you just talked about highlights one of the points we made in that conversation that LL and I had around, that's not just something you do outside of work. You get into the job and you meet people and you learn about their jobs, and you just never know what that opportunity creates or presents, especially in your world as a recruiter, where you may have to recruit for that same job. You could speak to it very specifically because you took the time. So I kudos to you, man. That's type of insight that people pay some coaches to hear about. ATJ, LL, bounce pass, brother.
Yeah, man, Josh, that's again, just so insightful, and thank you so much for sharing. Any other, before I move to the next question, any other pebbles, small pebbles, big rocks that you want to pick up here and share with everyone?
The only other kind of one I would say is like, don't be afraid to take risks. I think that's the other thing that people get complacent in their roles and they feel very comfortable with things. And I just had my performance review with my leader. And that was one of the things he gave me a big shot. He was like, hey man, like, you're still taking risks. You've been here 6 years and you're still willing to get into a spot where you could be in danger. But if you don't take those risks, you don't grow. Absolutely. And, obviously it's different from company to company, but if you have that opportunity to raise your hand and say, hey, let me take this on, let me put this on my shoulders, like, I'll be responsible, do it. That's how you get noticed. It's not from doing your day job well, it's the people who are going above and beyond. So like, even if it's not your own 100%, stretch those boundaries, grow, learn, take those risks.
Preach, Josh. Preach.
So Josh, in today's environment, and Joe and I both know kind of the environment that you currently work in, it can be tough. Like let's be honest, it's a tough environment. There's very high expectations, and especially at a startup. And you've kind of gone through the different stages of the startup, where we've gone from teeny tiny, working in 2 little warehouses. Didn't have much funding at the time, so we had to be very smart and strategic and all these things. Putting in lots of hours, whatever you want to call the kind of the startup culture, right? So what have you done to maintain your physical and mental well-being throughout this entire journey?
Yeah, that's a great question, man, because I think that's understated, that people don't think enough about it. And the number one thing I can say to do is like, find something where you truly detach. And I'm going to explain what I mean by like truly detach, because some people are like, oh, I don't work. We've all been there. All 3 of us are hardworking individuals. Like, even when I'm cooking dinner, I have a work problem going on in the back of my head. Or I'm angry about how a conversation went, or I'm pumped about how a presentation happened. But finding something where you're either so excited or invested in that thing, or you're just physically unable to think about work, has been the greatest thing for me. And then, for me, it's been, I like to work out a little bit. But honestly, and I'm a huge nerd for anyone who knows me. The biggest one for me is, and again, I'm about to just out myself in front of all your fans. So I play Magic the Gathering, which is like the nerd of the nerd card games. But it is 2 hours every Wednesday and Thursday where I'm so invested in the game that I can't think about work, because I got to make decisions on the game. I got to make, all this stuff, and I can have the crappiest day, but by the end of that, I've forgotten about it because I physically can't think about work. And that has done more for me in terms of keeping my mental sanity than any vacation. Because when I'm on vacation, I still think about work. But when I have that time and I'm focusing on a hobby or a different task, I can't. I don't have the brain space. My 10,000 squirrels, they all think about something else. They're not thinking about work.
Wow. That's dope, man. That's it's such good advice, and it's such a good approach to be able to find something to lose yourself in, so to speak, where you can separate it. And sometimes all you need is a break, even if it's a couple hours, just a mental break to rejuvenate and rest your brain before you have to jump back into the thick of it. So I gotta find something like that. Maybe if I could find a way to use my voice with one of my favorite people. All right.
Maybe one of these days.
He'll come to me. He'll come to me. Now that's awesome, man. That's awesome. So you mentioned we've gone down through a lot, right? We've talked about a variety of different things, and you shared a lot of nuggets. Now I want to formalize it. So now I'm asking you to think about more nuggets to share, because now we want you to go in a time machine. I'm sure there's one in your Magic game that you play. Go in your time machine, go back in history, and give your younger self some advice. Starting off in the career, some of the things you've experienced, and we want this to be able to translate into some of our younger listeners, or maybe parents, make your kids listen to this, who are getting ready to get going. So here's some great advice from the seasoned veteran that is Josh Rothermel.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think if I had to really go back to like young me and like have like a one-on-one, heart-to-heart, I think the first thing I would say is like, go for things that make you feel like you're growing, not necessarily the path that you have to, like, that you think everyone wants you to go on. I remember, and I joke about, I took the job because of an ex kind of giving me, negative feedback, and I'm a pretty competitive person. And the best way to get me to motivate me is to say I can't do something. But I had a pretty bad, thought about recruiting before then. I thought of all the negative stereotypes, and I was really scared to do it. Going back to old me, I was like, hey, like, don't be afraid. If it looks fun to you, try it out. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're wrong. And then you've at least learned something that you don't like, and you don't have to have that regret. I also would say, like, calm down. And what I mean by calm down is not just, personally, but things are going to happen. And they're going to happen whether you are impatient for them or whether you're willing to wait for them to happen. And there are so many things that I probably, whether it was trying to close offers too quickly or, wanting to push for a promotion, where I probably would have got it done in a better time if I had just not tried to force it. But when you're young and you see, man, I remember me like looking on social media, and I remember watching people who, like, you can make $500K a month if you just, I trade exotic sports cars. And I thought I had to do that. I was like, I'm not successful until I'm making, 6 figures a day. And that's not the case, man. Like, it's going to get there. And the more you try to force it, honestly, the less likely it's going to happen. No, don't get me wrong. Work your butt off. Leland, Joe, you guys know there's days at Rivian where we were doing 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., back to back to back to back to back. But I would do that again, especially if you have a great team around you. Like, you can work, if you have a great team, working is not a burden. But don't try to force the progression.
Yeah. And what I heard, there is and I 100% agree with you, there is a delineation between hard work and forcing it, right? Yeah. And so, like, the thing you just said, not to get those two confused, you're not giving advice to not work hard. You just get, like, don't force it to the point where you're missing all the lessons and all the things that you're supposed to gain throughout that particular journey, whatever it may be. So, great advice, man.
That is so good. Yeah. It's advice that would have benefited me earlier on in my, hell, even 5-6 years ago would have benefited me. So yeah, that's really great advice, Josh. So I guess we're coming up close to the end. We just got a couple more questions here for you. So the next one, tell us if you have like a good like happy hour story about work. Maybe it's a funny candidate story. Obviously, no names. Don't out anyone. But because you've been in recruiting so long, maybe let's frame it as a cautionary tale. Hey, this is a story about a candidate, and this is why you should not do this in an interview process. Something, I don't know.
Yeah. I'll tell you a candidate one, and then I'll tell you the time I embarrassed myself in front of Rihanna. That'll be the next one we'll do after.
Oh, nice.
But I had a candidate, and this was pretty early on in my career, who, we went through on a pretty timely manner. Like, I don't think from our end we did anything wrong on that aspect, but we eventually didn't move forward with her. And this was someone who, like, me and her, I had thought had become like, kind of chummy. We were trading songs. She seemed like an ideal candidate, but she wasn't a fit for the role we were going into. The day after I declined her, the whole process was like 2 weeks. So this is like 2 weeks after getting to know this woman. I get a LinkedIn message that just says, "You're number 9." And I have no context. It's 7 a.m. I have my bowl of like Fruit Loops in front of me, and I open up the LinkedIn message, and it's just an article that says 9 reasons you're not hiring people. And it's the typical things like, number 1, you're taking too long. 2, you're ghosting. 3, so on and so forth. And then it gets to 9, the one that she told me, this is you. And it says, maybe you're a jerk, and not the good kind. Okay, cool. I thought we were friends, or at least chummy, but no, that is not how it goes. So needless to say, that person is, kind of on a little bit of like I wouldn't reach out to her again if we did have a role.
She's on the DNR list, right?
Yeah. She's definitely not someone we would reach out to.
Yeah.
And Joe, we've talked about this in the past, right? Like when you get declined for a job, there's a chance that it's not the end of the road. Like
right.
Me personally, I interviewed at Rivian, got declined the first time. 6 months later, was offered a job.
Yeah.
And same type of situation. I got the message that said, "Hey, thanks for interviewing with us. You will keep your information on file." And of course, I thought nothing's going to come of this. But again, 6 months later, I got the job offer. So that right there is just like, please don't burn. Any job candidates out there, please don't do that. Please don't burn that bridge with a recruiter. Please don't burn the bridge with your hiring manager, because you're just going to screw yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I just leave that story just confused as to what the good kind of jerk is. I'm thinking shrimp, chicken. I'm getting hungry. So yeah. Now let's hear the Rihanna story. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to go to our unveiling of the R1T back in 2018. It's up in Griffith Observatory. But part of the everyone, all the employees that were able to go also kind of had to do like a job on the side. They looked at me, 6'2", 220. We're like, yeah, you can be security. 6'2". Okay, Mr. 6'9" or whatever you are. And my job was to basically be the guy, name, are you on the list? Let you into the party if you're on the list. And I was trying to do my best, Vegas bouncer, like, yeah, name, okay, sure. Trying to be intimidating when I am about as intimidating as like a golden retriever wearing like one of those goofy little hats. And this guy comes up to me, him and his girl, and he's like, I'm like, hey, name. He's like, says something. I'm like, you're not on the list. Who do you know here? And he goes, Rihanna. Rihanna was at our party and had a guest list. So I was like, oh, voice crack, everything. Let me go talk to her, because I'm just excited. I get to now I have a reason to talk to Rihanna. But I go up there, and first of all, she is, just a stunning individual. And so for like a 24-year-old, I was just shell shocked on that. And I think I went up to her and I just did like everything wrong you could do. So first of all, I did the whole like, excuse me, Miss Riri. Shoot, I mean, Rihanna. And she's like, yeah. And then she had a she has a Barbados accent, and I did not know that at the time. And I was like, oh, you sound different. And I was just like, oh God, stop talking. And she's like, yeah, can I help you? And I was like, oh yeah, there's people on the guest list. And so they were on the guest list and just had done late. But that was how I just completely butchered my one meeting like with Rihanna and just hit like every bad, hey, don't do this when you meet a celebrity in like a single sentence.
I'm still salty about that because I was supposed to be there, as you both know, but I had my surgery unexpectedly a week before that. So good job, Josh. Thanks for covering for me and making a fool out of yourself.
Yeah. And I got there the next day, so I missed the opportunity because I got there the next day. Should have used me. I wouldn't have messed that whole thing up. But I wouldn't be me if I didn't say, I bet you wanted to just find the umbrella and just hide under it or something like that. Because that sounds embarrassing as hell, bro.
I turned beet red, dude. Like it was bad.
Well, awesome story nonetheless. Even as an embarrassing story, you are part of the whatever% of people who have one of those with the wonderful Riri. Shouts out to Riri. You have an open invitation to the so final question we have for you, Josh, and we like to end every single conversation here. It's a concept that we like to call giving flowers, right? And so it's just to pick a person or two, and not the obvious one. Yeah. But pick a person and give some flowers, show some appreciation, share why they have been instrumental in your journey as we close out this wonderful conversation.
Yeah, I think the first one that comes to mind is a guy that I work with named Andy. And Andy used to report to me. And the reason I want to give him flowers is like he was the first time I had ever had to manage someone who was better than me at the job that they were doing, which I've had great recruiters that have worked for me before, but I mean, this guy's just better than me in every way, shape, and form when it comes to recruiting. And I really had to grow as a manager, and I think deep down he knew he was a better recruiter than me too. And so giving me the kind of grace to like, hey man, you don't need to teach me the basics. What else can you provide for me? And like that was probably my biggest growth spurt as a manager, was the time I had to hire someone I worked with someone who was better at that role than I had been in that job. I think every manager, if you're out there and you're wanting to know how to build a good team, I know it sounds cliche, but like do that. Hire people that are better at the role than you were in that job, because you have to grow as a manager. Because you got to show them things. And then the other one, not to be like the sappy type, but would easily be my mom. Wow. She to give some background, comes from a family of like 8. The only college educated one out of her entire family. Got her master's degree while raising me. Never missed a sports game. Never missed anything. Like always made sure I had dinner. And really just kind of showed me that like it doesn't matter if you're tired. If you're really intent on making yourself better, you'll find a way. You'll find a reason. You'll make for it. And I don't think I would be as far in my career if I hadn't had that role model of someone who just showed what true work, what true dedication, and like why continuous improvement is necessary. So without a doubt, like I'm not here without, for obvious reasons.
Obviously, right.
Yeah, but like I'm not in this point in my career if I don't have that example growing up.
That's cool, man. No, shouts out to Mama Rothermel. That's an awesome story, and shouts out to Andy as well. And I think we can all attest to that situation. LL, you ever hired anybody better than you?
All the time. I'm looking at one right now, but it's humbling, but such a great learning experience.
Absolutely agree. All right, man. Well, look, Josh, this has been an absolute blast to sit down and talk to you, catch up. I hadn't had a chance to talk to you face to face or Zoom face to face in a while, but I appreciate you, man. Every time I had a chance to visit California, sunny SoCal, you would make it your business to come check me out wherever I was and come share a beverage with me. And that's something that I'll never forget, man. I always appreciate whenever you come home, let me return the favor, my brother. Before we close out, LL, you got any final words, man?
Final thought for the day. Hey, listen, it doesn't matter how old you are. I think Josh is the perfect example here. I mean, I've learned so much from him throughout my career and my journey with him, and just even the last 30, 45 minutes, he's dropped some good bombs on us, man. So for any of us out there that maybe feel like, oh, we've kind of seen it all. And I know I've said this about myself. So like, oh, I've seen so much, but man, there's still so much to learn. And you can learn from people that are a little bit more junior than you too. So keep an open mind, man. This has been such a great conversation, Josh. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah, Josh. Thank you, LL. Very well said. As we close out for today and every single day, we want to remind you all out there, how can you contact us? How can you connect with us? How can you stay abreast of all the different opportunities we have to talk to amazing people like Josh? So LL, lay it on them, and then we'll close out.
Yep. Find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook at ATJ the podcast, or find us at our website, atjcareercoaching.com.
Holler at us. We're here. We're looking forward to the feedback. Drop some notes. Anybody who has to challenge any of Josh's stories, throw them in the comment section. We want to fact check this brother, because it all sounds too good to be true. But no, in all seriousness, thank you all for joining us today. We look forward to our next opportunity to get on the journey with you. For us, the destination is always the journey. We'll see you soon.
Success.